In the summer of 1966, in the charming town of Pecos, Texas, a mysterious incident unfolded at the Roper's Motel. A young couple going by the names Mr. and Mrs. Russell Batuan checked in for what was supposed to be a peaceful getaway. Little did they know, their stay would take a dark turn. As the man peacefully dozed off in their room, tragedy struck when his partner was discovered lifeless in the motel's swimming pool. The question on everyone's mind was, what exactly happened to lead to her untimely demise in the water? Could foul play be involved? Was someone responsible for orchestrating this tragic end? Today, we delve into the chilling details of this 55-year-old cold case, a case that remained unsolved until recently. Pecos, located in the western part of Texas, is not only known for this haunting incident, but also for its rich history as a trading post and a significant stopover for cattle drives in the late 1800s. With a population of around 8,000 people, this city serves as the county seat of Reeves County. Pecos has evolved into a bustling hub for the oil and gas industries, as well as agriculture and transportation. Moreover, it boasts various cultural attractions, including the renowned West of the Pecos Museum, which beautifully showcases the region's captivating history and heritage. Just outside the vibrant community of Pecos, along Highway 80, stood a quaint motor court adorned with a mesmerizing neon sign and a single-level structure adorned with Spanish tiles. This motel, a favorite among oil field workers and truck drivers passing through the area, was a true gem. Sandy Moore, a spirited 15-year-old girl from Clovis, New Mexico, spent her summer at this very motel, lovingly managed by her grandparents. Embracing her responsibilities, Sandy diligently worked at the front desk, meticulously cleaned rooms, and even served tables at the delightful on-site cafe. It was on that fateful day, July 5th, 1966, that Sandy's observant eyes caught sight of a couple who had checked in earlier as Mr. and Mrs. Russell Batuan, leisurely lounging in plastic chairs by the motel's inviting pool. The man contentedly sipped on a beer, while the woman, with her flowing dark locks and a vibrant red one-piece bathing suit, enjoyed a refreshing soda. The man appeared slender, sporting a crew cut of blonde hair, and seemed to be a good decade older than his companion. Moore found herself at the motel office 3 hours after her initial encounter with the Batuans, when a distressed maid rushed in, desperately attempting to communicate in broken English. Together, they made their way to the pool, where an astonishing discovery awaited them. At the bottom of the deep end, submerged about 12 feet underwater, lay a woman, face down. Moore, fully dressed, entered the scene, as there was no one else around, until a concerned hotel guest, drawn by the commotion, jumped in to assist. Despite 2 failed attempts, they managed to bring the woman to the surface. It was Mrs. Batuan. As an ambulance was called, Moore began performing CPR. Meanwhile, another hotel staff member entered the Batuan's room and found Russell, seemingly asleep. His wife was already on her way to the nearby Reeves County Memorial Hospital. When Russell finally arrived at the pool, he explained to Moore that he needed his registration card to identify himself before heading to the hospital. This raised suspicion, especially when he swiftly departed in a dark car after receiving it. Sadly, Mrs. Batuan was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital. Shockingly, Russell never showed up, callously neglecting to mourn her passing and leaving her to depart from this world without the solace of his presence. Since the police were unaware of the victim's identity, they assigned her the name Pecos Jane Doe, referencing the Texas city where the crime took place. This was done in the hopes of generating leads and identifying the victim through public outreach and media attention. Although Pecos Jane Doe's family never came forward, some devastated parents, struck by the resemblance between their own daughter and the drowned girl, established the Drowned Girl Trust Fund to assist with her funeral expenses. The tragedy had a profound impact on the residents of Pecos, who united in various ways to show their support. The funeral director displayed immense generosity by donating a stunning wooden casket, while a local clothing store provided a beautiful blue polka dot dress for the deceased. The community members joined forces to purchase a simple headstone for her grave, which bore the inscription, "Unknown Girl Drowned." As nobody knew her religious affiliation, her funeral service was conducted by both a Catholic priest and a Protestant minister, with approximately 50 locals in attendance. Pallbearers included 3 sheriff's deputies and 3 police officers. The minister assured the mourners that although they didn't personally know the girl, she was undoubtedly known to God. He expressed hope that if there was someone who cared for her, they would find solace in knowing that she was now surrounded by love and care. The unidentified woman was laid to rest in Fairview Cemetery, owned by the city and conveniently located across the street from Pecos High School. Sandy Moore, who had encountered the woman's supposed companion at the Roper's Motel, was deeply moved by the tragedy. Every time she returned to town, she made it a point to lay flowers at the grave. Over the years, Sandy often reflected on the incident and shared her emotions during a phone conversation from her home near Lubbock. The uncertainty surrounding the woman's origins and whether anyone was searching for her weighed heavily on her mind. Sheriff A.B. Nail of Reeves County wasted no time in mobilizing his team to search for the man. However, the investigation faced initial challenges due to limited information. Without the registration card, the police were unaware of the make or license plate number of the man's car. All that remained in the Batuan's motel room were a blouse, bra, and a pair of shorts. The sheriff's office attempted to locate Russell Batuan, but the only individual by that name they found was an active-duty Marine stationed in North Carolina. The couple's use of false identities added an extra layer of mystery to the already perplexing case. Due to the lack of a medical examiner in Reeves County, a skilled pathologist from Odessa was brought in to conduct the autopsy. During the examination, the pathologist discovered a red abrasion above the woman's left cheekbone, the size of a quarter. It remained unclear whether the injury occurred before her death or while her body was being retrieved from the pool. Despite the absence of concrete evidence of foul play, the woman's death was ruled as accidental drowning. Consequently, Sheriff Nail opted not to launch a homicide investigation. In a subsequent interview with a journalist, Sheriff Nail disclosed that the only known wrongdoing of the man was skipping out on his motel bill. Following the autopsy, the woman's body was transferred to the Pecos funeral home, where it was embalmed and placed in a back parlor in the hopes of someone coming forward to identify her. The mysterious drowning captured national attention, prompting concerned families from various states to reach out to the funeral home. Some even traveled to Pecos in search of their missing loved ones. A couple from Odessa believed they had found their child, but dental records proved otherwise. In 1966, the only clue to the woman's identity was a message inadvertently left behind. Upon her arrival at the hospital, handwriting was discovered on the sole of her right foot, reading, "Joe and Lean." Unfortunately, the police were unable to make any progress with this message, and the case eventually went cold. The absence of a national database for missing and unidentified persons led to delays in investigations. In response, cold case investigator Todd Matthews established the volunteer-run Doe Network in 1999. They established a database for missing individuals and unidentified bodies, receiving hundreds of leads annually and aiding in the resolution of nearly 100 cases. The National Missing and Unidentified Person System was established by the Justice Department in 2007, drawing inspiration from the Doe Network. Todd Matthews, the founder of the Doe Network, was appointed as the Director of Communications and Outreach for the National Missing and Unidentified Persons. According to Matthews, he has always felt a connection to unidentified victims, as they often receive less attention from law enforcement the longer they remain nameless. Frequently, there is no one advocating for them, and officers have limited information to work with. Matthews explained that identifying an unknown victim is not a desirable task, especially when there is no family seeking answers. He noted that with an unidentified body, there is no one to speak up, as they are already laid to rest. Matthews became intrigued by the Pecos Jane Doe case and believed it was time to revisit and delve deeper into it. In 2019, he assembled a team of 4 detectives and initiated the investigation. In August 2019, before sunrise, the team of 4 investigators, Mark Ingraham, Lisa Tarango, Felix Salcido, and Pablo Carrasco, whom Matthews had appointed, journeyed to Fairview Cemetery and gathered around Pecos Jane's grave. They observed as a backhoe operator excavated a rectangular hole in the ground, approximately 6 feet deep. The backhoe struck a wooden coffin, prompting Ingraham to descend into the grave for examination. Despite the coffin's significant deterioration after being buried for over 5 decades, the skeletal remains remained intact. The bones had been stained a reddish-tan hue by the soil, and fragments of pantyhose and a blue polka dot dress were intermingled with them. Ingraham meticulously cleared away the soil from the bones using a trowel and brush, methodically placing them on a pristine white sheet at the grave's edge. Once the entire skeleton had been unearthed, it underwent meticulous arrangement to restore its correct anatomical structure. The carefully arranged skeleton was then carefully wrapped in paper, placed inside a blue body bag, sealed within a sturdy box, and dispatched for DNA testing. Following the comprehensive examination of the remains of Pecos Jane Doe in 2019, they were sent to a forensic examiner who operated a laboratory in Denton. It was determined that the skeleton belonged to a young Caucasian woman, aged between 15 and 18 years old. In an earnest attempt to identify her, a fragment of bone was extracted and sent to Fort Worth, where DNA was extracted and uploaded to the Federal Bureau of Investigation's national database. Unfortunately, no matches were found within the database, which was not surprising considering it was established many years after the woman's demise. Nearly a year had elapsed since the rekindling of the mystery surrounding Jane Doe in Pecos, Texas, when a small package arrived at the doorstep of Othram, a private forensic laboratory situated in the Woodlands area of Houston. Within the package lay a molar that had been extracted from the unidentified woman's jaw. Othram, founded in 2018 by David Middleman, a scientist and entrepreneur with an unwavering passion for genomics, proved to be the ideal laboratory to examine the molar. Middleman's fascination with genomics had blossomed during his time as an undergraduate research assistant during the final stages of the groundbreaking Human Genome Project, a 13-year, $3 billion endeavor that revolutionized modern genetic testing. With the arrival of the package, Middleman and his team eagerly embarked on their work, hoping to unravel the enigma surrounding Pecos Jane's true identity. Regrettably, Pecos Jane's DNA did not match any entries in the database, which was to be expected as the database had been established in the 1990s, long after her demise. The investigation seemed to have reached yet another impasse, leaving the team pondering whether they would ever be able to unveil the true identity of Pecos Jane Doe. Unexpectedly, Othram received a surprise call from a private forensic lab, Innovative Forensic Investigations, located in the quiet town of Emporia, Virginia, near the North Carolina border. This connection was established through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children back in November 2022. Othram had previously handed over the Pecos Jane Doe case to Innovative Forensic Investigations in 2019. Jennifer Moore, a self-taught forensic genetic genealogist, delved into the case after helping her husband locate his biological parents. Moore's team utilized traditional genealogical techniques to trace the family line of 3 Texas siblings back to the likely common ancestors shared with Pecos Jane. Slowly but surely, they worked their way down the family tree, searching for individuals who matched the victim's age at the time of her death. After weeks of dedicated work, they pinpointed a large Kansas family with 15 children, some of whom were still alive and active on social media, a valuable resource for genealogists. Upon further investigation, they discovered a brother who frequently mentioned a missing sister from years ago. Following this lead, a detective paid a visit to Joyce Hemi, a 74-year-old retiree living in St. Petersburg, Florida. When asked about a missing family member, Joyce broke down in tears, revealing that she was the victim's eldest sister. Thanks to relentless DNA testing efforts, the victim was finally identified as Jolane Hemi after years of being nameless. This breakthrough was achieved through the use of advanced DNA technology, allowing forensic experts to extract and analyze genetic material from the victim's remains. Growing up on a 160-acre farm in central Kansas, Jolane Hemi had a bustling childhood as part of a large Catholic family. With 14 siblings, life was never dull on their farm just outside Salina. The Hemi family worked hard, cultivating wheat and raising a variety of animals, from Angus cattle to chickens, pigs, and turkeys. Their livestock and bountiful vegetable garden ensured that they were well provided for. Despite living near Canopolis Lake, the Hemi kids rarely ventured into the water during their weekend picnics. Jolane, in particular, couldn't swim, a detail that would later become significant. According to her eldest sister, Rosemary, she was a shy girl who preferred the company of books over social gatherings. Jolane's closest companion was her older sister, Joyce, and the two were inseparable. During that fateful summer, Jolane met an older man while working, although her siblings couldn't recall his name. Joyce, who had met him a few times, believed he was in his late 20s, much older than Jolane. Joyce didn't trust him and found him to be controlling. She urged Jolane to find someone else, but Jolane insisted that she liked him. Their differing opinions on the man strained their relationship. On Friday, July 1st, 1966, Jolane visited Joyce after work, inviting her to watch a movie with her, her boyfriend, and another girl. However, Joyce had already made plans to go fishing with her own boyfriend and declined the offer. Little did she know that it would be the last time she saw her sister. Jolane didn't return home that night, nor the next day or even the day after that. The mystery surrounding her disappearance only deepened as the investigation intensified. Joyce recounted the extensive search she and her sister had undertaken, leaving no stone unturned in their quest to find Jolane. They had gone to great lengths, visiting Jolane's workplace, the police, and even reaching out to her friends. To their surprise, they discovered that Jolane's boyfriend was also missing, and she had not collected her paychecks as usual. When they reported Jolane's disappearance to the police, they were met with the suggestion that the couple may have run away together and would likely return soon. However, Joyce's suspicions were aroused when she received a postcard in her mailbox. The note on the card, supposedly from Jolane, seemed off. It was not written in her handwriting, and the name Joe was used, which was not familiar to Joyce. Elverda, Jolane's mother, also received a similar letter that her children agreed Jolane could not have written. Frustrated and angry, Elverda tore the letter into pieces and discarded them in Kansas City. In their desperate search for answers, Joyce and Carolyn began putting up posters around town, hoping someone had seen their sister. The only clues they had were the letter and postcard from Las Vegas. Tarango, the investigator on the case, believed that Jolane's boyfriend might be behind these items. The police considered the possibility that the couple had gone to Las Vegas to get married, but their search for marriage licenses yielded no results. The mystery deepened when it was discovered that the couple had somehow ended up in Pecos. It seemed like an unlikely destination, unless the man had some connection to the famous rodeo that took place from July 1st to 4th that year. However, there is no record of a Russell Batuan competing in the 1966 rodeo. Many members of the Hemi family suspect that Jolane's lover was involved in her death. They argue that since she couldn't swim, it doesn't make sense for her to be found in a swimming pool. The biggest mystery surrounding Jolane's case revolves around the identity of the man who was with her at the Roper's Motel. If he is still alive, he would be in his 80s now. Several members of the Hemi family strongly believe that he is responsible for Jolane's murder. Their reasoning is based on the fact that Jolane couldn't swim, so why would she be in the motel pool? Additionally, an abrasion was discovered on the side of her head. Sandy Moore, the granddaughter of the motel owners, vividly remembers seeing broken glass near the pool when she discovered Jolane's lifeless body. It is plausible that the man may have struck Jolane with a beer bottle during an argument, causing her to fall into the pool and drown. However, it remains perplexing why he didn't immediately flee the scene after the incident. It is possible that he didn't intend to harm Jolane and only panicked upon realizing that she had accidentally drowned. Consequently, he chose to vanish. The fact that the man who was with Jolane at the motel has not come forward with any information in the past 55 years is an act of extreme cruelty. Regardless of his involvement in her death, he could have anonymously provided Jolane's family with some insight into what happened, or at the very least, given them a clue to aid in their search for her. While Tarango and Salcido, the members of the four-man detective squad appointed by Matthew as previously mentioned, continue their relentless search for the man who left Jolane buried anonymously far from home, their chances of finding him are slim. Furthermore, even if they do locate him, it is unlikely that a criminal prosecution can take place due to the missing case file and the pathologist's ruling that Jolane's death was an accidental drowning. Tarango stated that it is highly improbable for him to provide evidence of Jolane's murder. Sandy Massey, formerly known as Sandy Moore when Jolane passed away, vividly recalls the day she stumbled upon Jolane's lifeless body in the motel pool. At that time, Sandy was merely 15 years old, and the memory of being tricked into surrendering the registration card still haunts her to this very day. Despite the passage of more than 5 decades, Sandy continues to carry the burden of remorse for her actions and how they might have played a role in Jolane's tragic demise. During a recent phone conversation with some of Jolane's siblings, Sandy received gratitude for her valiant attempt to save their sister and was warmly invited to visit them in Kansas. Indianapolis Metropolitan Police revealed a significant development in a cold case that spanned nearly 5 decades, involving 3 hitchhiking girls and a man described by detectives at the time as a predator. The mysterious perpetrator responsible for the brutal assaults on the young girls in a field was unmasked during a press conference, finally providing closure to the investigation that had haunted the city for years. Thomas Edward Williams, known as the Slasher by both law enforcement and the victims, passed away at the age of 49 in November 1983 while incarcerated in Galveston, Texas. At the time of the abduction, Williams resided near the location where the kidnapping took place. In 1975, 3 girls hitchhiked along the 800 block of East Washington Street in an attempt to reach an amusement center. Upon realizing that something was amiss, when the man who picked them up had removed the inside door handle of the front passenger door, they soon found themselves in grave danger. The man, believed to be in his 40s, drove the girls past their intended destination and into Hancock County, eventually veering off onto a county road and into a cornfield. It was there that he sexually assaulted the youngest girl, who was only 11 years old at the time, stabbing her 3 times in the throat and 15 times in the chest. Subsequently, he slit the throats of the 13-year-old and 14-year-old before leaving them all for dead. "I heard him moving around, then the car door closed and the engine started," recounted the eldest victim during an interview in February 2018. "I was trying to figure out which direction he was heading because I wanted to escape, but the 13-year-old grabbed my leg, causing me to fall. I couldn't tell which way he went." The 2 older victims were unable to locate the youngest victim, who happened to be the sister of the eldest victim. The man had dragged her further into the field. "He lifted me up and threw me into the cornfield," recounted the youngest victim. The 2 older victims managed to crawl out of the field and onto US 40 in an effort to flag down help. 3 men stopped to assist them, transporting them to a motel and contacting the authorities. One officer who arrived at the motel scene first compared the cuts on the girls' necks to the appearance of an accordion. Subsequently, law enforcement returned to the field in search of the youngest victim. A manhunt for the assailant ensued for several years, with newspaper clippings sharing leads and providing suspect sketches based on the girls' descriptions. In a news article, a police detective stated that the sketch matched the description of a suspect known for abducting and sexually assaulting girls from East Side schools. At that time, the Marion County Sheriff assigned 12 detectives to the case. In December 1975, approximately 4 months after the attacks, Marion County prosecutors identified a Homer man as a suspect, although no charges were filed. The search continued, but eventually, the case went cold. In 2018, Steve Gibbs, a detective sergeant with the Marion County Sheriff's Office, took on the cold case and described the assailant as a hunter of victims, stating, "Once you're in his car, it's like being caught in a spider web. There's no getting out." On January 9th, 2019, the women underwent DNA swabbing under the supervision of Sergeant David Ellison, who had taken over the case. They visited the city-county building to provide their DNA samples for comparison against the evidence. Without disclosing any details, Indianapolis police announced in a news release that it was through DNA analysis that they were led to the suspect. Following a collaboration between Indianapolis Police, AudioChuck, and DNA Labs International, Deputy Chief Kendall Adams of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department addressed the 3 women, expressing his hope that this would be the first step in providing closure through the criminal justice system. During the news conference, Mrs. Rottler-Trick stated that she had chosen to forgive Mr. Williams for the attack, acknowledging that her decision might not be well received by everyone. Mrs. Smith was the final woman to address the audience. She expressed that the confirmation of Mr. Williams's identity had provided her with a sense of closure and had delivered justice to her family. "It has brought peace to my heart," she stated.